Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with the grandiloquent Charles Coulombe.
I like that. Grandiloquent. You know what that means?
Yeah, I have the definition right here. It means
okay.
Pompous or extravagant in language, style, or manner, especially in a way that is intended to impress. That was suggested by one of your fans.
That's my friend?
A fan.
A fan?
Affectionately.
Well, we'll let it stick. This is, after all, the penultimate show, and I'm getting kicked out constantly on this thing. I mean, everybody is throwing in their 2 cents to remind me that I'm out of here. I'm a short timer.
You're short, yeah? Well.
Yeah, I'm saying. I mean, it's horrible. I got a call from the commissary accounting department.
Did you?
I did. They said the number of times that that I've eaten meals in the commissary don't line up with the number of chits they have from me.
Okay.
No, that's not all. The motor pool accountant called, and he said that I've used the car on the car I've been assigned on non-company business for joyriding, as he put it.
Ah, okay.
And they want me to pay $38.
Gosh, I wish I could do something, Charles, but I mean, just the bureaucracy is so big, it's like,
Well, it's not all. I got a call.
You got a...
I got a call. Honestly, listen to this. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, you'll be able to hear this, but I mean, God, honestly, what was that ballad thing? Oh, here it is. Listen to this.
This is Secretary Horschbacher transmitting from a secure location. After the incident on floor 53, we had to go underground. However, that does not mean that I will forget the paperwork due on my desk at 10:23 next Tuesday, Mr. Coulombe. Your upcoming departure does not excuse neglect of your duties. Horschbacher out.
Wow. It sounds like, sounds like she takes herself a little too seriously, if you ask me. Kind of nerdy, too.
Yeah, it sounds like human resources has gone crazy. That's how it sounds.
Yeah.
And, and that Gorgon who presides over the secretariat pool, she's, nothing but dirty looks from her now.
That's a shame.
And when I go through, and smile at the girls the way I always used to do, and get them to giggle and tell jokes and all that, she says, we don't have that time. We don't have time for that kind of unprofessional behavior around here.
Wow.
Wow, indeed. So I guess the writing is so much on the wall around here.
Yeah. I feel like Pope Francis, it's like, the bureaucracy's so big, I'm at the top, but, like, what can I do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What can I do?
Yeah, I know. And who are you to judge
who
anyway?
Who am I to judge?
You're looking down over the vast terrain. Looking over it all, you say, well,
yeah.
What's it like being in the penthouse now? It's your regular office.
It's nice. It's spacious. It's comfortable. Good air conditioning.
Are you keeping your brother's furniture? They wouldn't let me in, so I gotta ask. Are you keeping your brother's furniture, or did you get new stuff?
He's kind of got a weird feng shui arrangement, and I'm not into all that, so out with the old, in with the new. That's what I always say.
Oh, jeez. So I guess all the Chinese screens are going out.
Yep.
The samurai armor off to the dump.
Nope, not interested.
Gosh. So what is it going to be, Danish modern, or what? Baroque.
Well, no, I haven't made up my mind yet. We'll see how it goes.
So you kept his chair and desk anyway.
I have a couple fashion decorators that I'm getting advice from. So they're going to be sending suggestions my way, and then I'll review their suggestions, and we'll arrive at a reasonable decision.
I'll bet. They cleared my books out of my cubicle.
What books?
My research books. I had 2 shelves full. They're all gone and shipped back home.
No,
Oh, you're just nodding. You weren't aware of this?
no, I don't know what goes on down there. I mean, I let my underlings operate with autonomy.
Yeah, you mean like automatons? No, I mean they cleared out my books. My desk has no stationery. The computer's still working, but that's about it.
Well,
Well, anyway, what can I tell you, ladies and gentlemen? I am a short timer, and I feel very, very much our time together coming to a close. Next week is our last program together,
the finale.
the finale.
Yes.
The finale of the coffin. Well, gosh, 2 years. It went by like that, didn't
It
it?
did.
Well, let's not get teary-eyed. What do we got?
Okay, first question is from Lightning Patriot.
Lightning Patriot.
Yes.
That means he believes in lightning above any other form of electricity or natural expression.
He's a bundle of energy.
Ooh, wow. Lightning bugs.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we got?
As someone who has been going to Byzantine Catholic liturgy recently, I am curious if there were Latin Rite communities in the East and the Byzantine in the West before the 16th century. Also, what are your thoughts on the Western Rite, Orthodox, and other schismatic groups that have revived localized liturgical practices, and can those liturgies be brought into the church?
Well, those are 2 different questions. The answer to the first one is yes. There have always been Latin and Eastern Rite communities on either side of the Great Divide, always. Rome, for instance, always had Eastern Rite monks in monasteries in different places. Southern Italy has a lot of Greek and Italo-Albanian Catholics who were Byzantine Rite. And similarly, there have always been Latin Rite people in the East. Hence, when the Great Schism took place in 1054, the Latin churches in Constantinople were all looted, and the hosts desecrated. And during the massacre of the Latins in 1182, over a century later, it was the same thing. The Latins were murdered and their churches destroyed. I mention this not to bang on that, but simply to point out it shows an abiding presence of Latins in the Byzantine Empire. The other thing that makes it a little confusing is that for a long time the boundary between Constantinople and Rome was what is now Western Bulgaria. Greece and Yugoslavia and all that, Serbia and Croatia and so on, were under Rome. But most of them were Byzantine Rite. But they were under the Patriarchate of Rome. And then Leo the Isaurian, who was the iconoclast emperor, to punish the Pope for not going on with iconoclasm, he took Illyrium and Greece away from the Patriarchate of Rome and added it to Constantinople, which did make more sense liturgically because they were Byzantine Rite.
Okay.
And then as to the other question, I would say yes.
They can be brought into the church.
Yeah, sure. Why not? And they may very well be bringing in interesting liturgical customs with them that have been lost otherwise. Incidentally, I know what goes on in Discord.
You do know what goes on in
I know
Discord?
what goes on in Discord. I'm not as dumb as I look, even though I'm over 30.
Okay.
And you know what?
What?
Extermination of whites.
Extermination of whites?
The decision that was given, or not the decision, the choice, was if you had to choose, would you exterminate all Catholics or all whites? Now, if you exterminated all Catholics, there'd be no white Catholics left. There'd be nobody, no more Catholics. Bye-bye. Oh God, no more. But if you exterminated all whites, there would still be Catholics left. And the faith would carry on.
But there'd be no whites.
Okay, well,
Wow.
at least there'd still be Catholics. Besides which, who are you calling white? I've got my Knights of Peter Claver pen on.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
So ridiculous.
What's ridiculous?
That you're a Knight of St. Peter Claver.
Why is that ridiculous?
Because you're not black.
I'm not.
You're an honorary black.
Well, I'll tell you honestly, all joking aside, I'm very proud to be a Knight of Peter Claver. It's a brilliant organization, does a lot of good work for the church. It's the work of evangelization amongst blacks and black Catholics in particular is tremendous, and I support it 100%. I'm also a Knight of Columbus, but the Knights of Peter Claver were formed precisely because black Catholics in the South at the turn of the 20th century could not join the Knights of Columbus.
Ah.
So the reason for that, there was never a law against
So
it.
Knights of Columbus are racist.
No. There was never a law against it in the Knights of Columbus. Never. But in those days they had what was called the blackball rule, which meant that one person could keep you out of council. And in the South, you could always find one person.
Wow.
So
That's kind of a weird rule.
no, not really. I mean, most organizations had it at one time.
Because all it takes is one crazy.
Yeah. But it's the way, I mean, that's what blackballing comes from, that phrase, to be blackballed. So, in response, they founded their own organization in Mobile, Alabama, at Most Pure Heart of Mary Church. And now, the Knights of Peter Claver are all over the South and the West, and somewhat in the Northeast, wherever there are black Catholic parishes. And they're very, very fine people, and I'm extremely proud to be associated with them.
Excellent.
Mind you, I should say one other thing. If you said the slaughter of all Catholics or all whites, I'd say all whites. But I prefer not to have to slaughter all of anything.
Right.
It's a pretty obnoxious choice to be handed.
That's what happens on Discord. We contemplate these insane scenarios and say, okay, well, what's permissible in this? If an abortion clinic kidnapped your wife and was forcing an abortion on her, can you kill everyone in the abortion clinic? See, that's the kind of scenarios.
Wow, we played a game like that when I was in college called Death is Not an Option. You know, it would be things like, who would you date on Saturday night? Given a choice between Barbra Streisand and Joy Behar, death is not an option.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have to choose which of the two. But I find that kind of choice invidious. I mean, what if it was like, okay, you could slaughter all the insane or all the moronic? What if I'd end up dead either way? See?
That's true.
Yeah, that's what you guys aren't thinking of.
Okay, next question is from Eric. I was at a family reunion a few years ago and got to talking about religion. I mentioned I was Catholic. The other two men I was talking with were Freemasons and mentioned how Freemasons and Catholics were sworn to kill each other. They then went on to say how many great people were Masons, John Wayne being their high card. I retorted by saying John Wayne was a deathbed convert, much to their chagrin,
I'll bet.
and that his grandson is a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
Is there an oath for Catholics to kill Masons on sight?
No. And as far as I know, there's not an oath for Masons to kill Catholics on sight. Although if there were, being a secret organization, I wouldn't know about it.
Ooh, that's
But
true.
I've never heard of such a thing, and I doubt it exists. I mean, look, it's certainly true that the basic Masonic belief, conduct over creed, it doesn't matter what you believe as long as you're a nice person, is completely opposed to Catholicism, which teaches that you have to accept revealed religion and the teachings and sacraments that come from that. You know, two diametrically opposed views, absolutely. And Catholics cannot join the Masonic order. But there's usually not this kind of immediate genocidal fury between them.
Okay, good. Thank goodness. We have enough genocide.
Yeah, that's true.
Alright,
Is genocide when you get rid of your blue jeans?
No. You don't even have blue jeans.
No, but if I did, I get rid of them. Would it be genocide?
No.
No.
All right. Next question is from William of Fort Worth.
Mm.
Recently, I read the encyclical Pacem in Terris by Pope John the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
In it, he establishes a long list of human rights. I was wondering if I could pick your brain regarding the nature of rights, since I don't think I've ever seen it defined well.
All right. Yeah, a right is a prerogative due someone purely on intrinsic basis. In other words, he has a given right purely because of who he is and what he does.
Okay.
You can balance that against a privilege, which someone graciously grants him, or an obligation, which something that, like a right, comes on the basis of who and what he is.
Okay.
It's interesting that today we talk a lot about rights, but we do not talk about obligations.
Well, one of my one guy I listened to, he's kind of a Jordan Peterson type figure. That he's like not Catholic, but he's I think he's Anglican, and but he says a lot of cool things that you can reconcile with Catholicism in our worldview. And he talked about rights and how it's sort of an evolving thing in this new society of ours. How based off your demographic, you actually have different rights.
Yep.
Women have different rights from men. African Americans have different rights from homosexuals.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has these unique rights. And it's kind of a strange thing, to be honest, because we preach equality, and yet we don't have equality.
Well, no, and the thing is, a lot of those of the newly discovered rights are contradictory. In other words, okay, a gay guy puts the make on a black guy.
The make?
Like he attempts to seduce him.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure.
Right. And the black guy pops him.
Well, that's homophobic.
Well, except that the guy's black.
Well, that's racist.
Exactly. Maybe he's paying unwanted attention.
Actually, that's not
racist
racist, because he was trying to seduce the black guy, so he liked the black guy.
Yeah, but when the black guy said stop, he should have stopped.
Oh, so that was racist.
Yeah, not stopping.
Yeah.
He was basically taking advantage of him because of his race.
Oh,
Reducing
I see.
him.
I see.
So, set up like that, whose
I
human
see.
rights take
So when
precedence?
the two different, those two different demographics clash, well, what happens? I see. It's interesting. It's a good question.
Yeah. No.
What do you think will happen? You think it's going to get more weird?
Yeah. Why shouldn't it? I mean, it won't get, with the current presidential setup, it won't get quite as weird as quickly. But there's so many people at every level of government dedicated to making it this way. And so little means, because we live in a democratic republic, so little means for the population to control their destinies.
Yeah.
That they'll just have to turn around and give what they're taking, or take what they're given, or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, next question is from MJX Hansinger. Near the end of Charles's book, Star-Spangled Crown, he talks about his correspondence with Archduke Otto von Habsburg, his joining of various royalist societies, and his acquaintance with several monarchs and heirs. I was wondering if Charles could relate to us his monarchist experience, and please, the more details the better.
Well, I don't know really what to say with that. I have been a monarchist really most of my life. My father was, being French Canadian and very historically minded, was a great fan of the House of Bourbon and considered the French Revolution to be an abomination. But he also had a lot of Scots blood. He loved the Stuarts, the Jacobites, and things like that. From my mother, I got a great love of the Habsburgs and the Romanovs. And what this did was break down the natural anti-monarchic prejudice that we Americans are raised with.
Ah, yeah.
It didn't make me a monarchist by itself. but it meant that I could look at things without immediately,
Yeah.
prejudging.
Also for Mr. Honsinger, we do have an older video on how you became a monarchist.
Oh.
I think so. We do have that in the back. Do you have any experience with kings, some royalty?
Well, yeah, I met the King and Queen of Sweden back in 1988. They were out here in LA for the 300th anniversary of New Sweden.
How'd you pull that off?
This will shock you, young man, but I am a person of some social consequence.
Oh, you're kind of a big deal.
A legend of my own mind.
Wow,
Yeah.
it finally comes out.
Well, I'm basically like a fifth-rate celebrity. Yeah, pretty much. I have my own table at the Polo Lounge, but it's by the kitchen.
Okay.
But it's my own. Nobody else will be seated there. And if you try, or I'm sorry to say that's Mr. Coulombe's table.
Well, that's nice, I guess.
Yeah, except it's by the kitchen.
Yeah.
So that's my
Well, that's your in. Okay.
low wattage Hollywood glimmer.
Okay.
I'm Criswell's disciple.
Okay, so you have some pull in using your.
I've got if this is the kind of pole that stops the train or the bus, this is what I've got. I can raise the shutters, raise the whatnot so you can look outside. Anyway, but it was interesting because they had seen something like 14 cities in 12 days. Obviously, both exhausted, but they stood there grinning away and doing their job. And we saw a Swedish film retrospective with Anne Margaret as the mistress of ceremonies.
Wait, you watched a Swedish film with the King and Queen of Sweden?
And, 500 other of our closest, most personal friends.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, that's not the extent of.
No. But it's a fun story.
What about now? This trips me out. I don't know. I still don't know how you pulled this off. When King Kigali, the late King Kigali,
Of
was
Rwanda.
here, you were his personal chauffeur.
It was his 86.
How'd you pull that off?
I am a person of some consequence. No, that happened through the Monarchist League.
Oh, interesting.
So they asked me if I would look after him, and I said, yeah, sure. I did.
Actually, that's my limited monarchist experience.
What was the
I got to
thing?
shake his hand, and the legacy of that is the biggest hand I ever shook was the hand of a king. I mean,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was unbelievable.
And then, of course, when years later you saw a great Game of Stoners, the phrase "the hand of the king" meant something to him.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true.
He, if you recall, he was 7'2".
He was mammoth.
He said he was the shortest of his brothers.
He was, and because I was like 5 or 6 at the time.
Yeah,
So
that's
you know
right,
how
I
when
remember.
you're 5 or 6, and like kind of normal adult things are larger than life.
Right.
And then he was that
He was larger
big.
than larger.
He was larger than life. So that had a huge impact on me. So was that it? So King Kigali and the King and Queen of Sweden. Anybody else?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. I saw the Queen in London back in '79. I was with a bunch of other cadets from NMI, and we went to Westminster Abbey, not realizing that it was Commonwealth Day, and that all the governors general of the Commonwealth had arrived and gone to church with the Queen. And so they came out in a procession, and the Queen was about as far as that chair from me. So we all waved and shrieked, "God save the Queen!" Ah!
Did she even look? She's like, look at these peasants.
Well, she looked and smiled, moved on. What was she supposed to do? I have I've seen the Pope, of course.
John Paul.
Oh no, the real one, Francis.
You did not see Fran. When did you?
2015.
I didn't even know you went over
I
there.
did. I stayed in the Villa Australia, which is the Australian pilgrim residence over there.
Did you say hi? You tell him a joke?
No, I'm not going to say what. I'm not going to say that.
You're not gonna say it. Oh
No,
wow,
I'm not
very
gonna say what
mysterious.
came to mind. It wasn't nice.
Very mysterious.
Yeah, I tried.
Okay, Next question is from, well, Anonymous.
Ooh, anonymous.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want it, but what if my response were also anonymous, and we don't know if it's coming from me or not?
That'd be, well, you're pretty distinctive. I don't know. I think that'd be pretty hard to do. We'd have to like encrypt your voice or something and do a voice changer and sort of have a screen in front of you.
All right, we can do this. All right, what is the question?
Okay, very, very discreet. Okay. Could you please tell us about Photius and the complicated history around him?
He's dead.
Okay, great.
You don't want me to do this voice?
I don't want you to do this.
All right. Photius was the. I have to be brutally frank. The details are a little wiggy in my head right now, but Photius was the patriarch of Constantinople. Came into conflict with the papacy, and began what was the first temporary schism with the Holy See in the 880s, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
I forget what it was over, probably Filioque and so forth. Like most schisms, it didn't reflect well on either party. It is interesting to reflect, though, that, as Soloviev points out, the Phocian schism ended. Then you had the Iron Age of the Church, the pornocracy, when the popes were selected basically by sluts and their daughters for over 100 years.
Uh-huh.
And when that 100 years were over, that was when the schism began again. During the pornocracy, Soloviev points out, Constantinople had no problem with papal primacy.
Yeah, you said this, I think, in Vickers or somewhere. I've heard this.
Yeah, and it's amazing if you think about it, because it shows. I don't know what it shows, but it's still amazing.
I think it shows a rivalry, because you say it's only when men of apostolic character are once again sitting on the throne of Peter that then you start butting heads.
Yeah.
And so I think it's sort of a rivalry. It's like, oh well, these guys are pretty good. We need to get good too, or something like that. I mean, whereas, it's easy to. Maybe feelings of insecurity. Wow, I'm sure these Orthodox are all going to scream at me, but it's easy to not be insecure about what you did when you've got the pornocracy going on.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we made a good choice.
No matter how bad Constantinople may have been during the pornocracy,
Yeah.
they weren't as bad as the pornocracy.
Yeah.
So, I can see that. Well,
but then when you have men with apostolic characters, like, oh gosh, kind of feel guilty now. They kind of are, fixing themselves.
yeah, bothersome.
Yeah. So,
All right.
boy, I think we're gonna get some nasty comments on that one. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, don't be too upset, gentlemen, because Orthodoxy, like Catholicism, is heavily dependent on its priests. St. John Chrysostom, who is renowned by both Catholics and Orthodox, was a great believer in the idea that most priests do not save their souls.
Yeah, that sounds like him.
Yeah. Well, rather than getting upset at each other, maybe what we really need is a lot of mutual forgiveness and humility. But that's just me.
Okay. All right, next question is from the Mad Monarchist.
Oh, wow.
What is the real story of the Loudon possessions? Each version of events I've read have come from those fairly hostile to the church and the Kingdom of France. What's the truth?
Well, I wasn't there, despite my age. But, I mean, he's hit on an important point. Huxley and people like that wrote about it from an anti-Catholic viewpoint, and were looking for any way to crack a snook at the church. I have not examined the stuff myself, but if the proceedings against the priest in charge and the sisters, it was done according to canonical process, then there's nothing to be said. There were devils at Loudun, and that's the end of it.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say to a Mad Monarchist?
Oh, yes, there is, actually. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Mad Monarchist! I answered this question for you about the devils of Loudun. I need a favor from you. Start up again. and all of you other folk listening, write to the Mad Monarchist on his
Blog.
on his blog. That's the word I want. Urging him, telling him of your tremendous support, and urging him to start it up again. Telling him how your lives have become empty shells, because he isn't filling it with a delightful light of monarchical insight. All right.
All right. Next question is from Egil Cross. I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on ethno-nationalism? Understood as the belief that blood and heritage are more important in a person's nationality than culture or a piece of paper given by the government. If a German man moves to China, he's not going to become Chinese just because the government gives him a visa. Why should it be otherwise in the West?
Well, you've opened up a whole can of worms here. For instance, as you know, I'm French Canadian.
Yeah.
Or at least half.
Yeah.
Fourth generation. But I consider myself French Canadian. You, on the other hand, are Italian, Slovak, and Magyar.
Okay.
The Magyars and the Slovaks do not care for one another.
No.
So basically, if you were filled with ethno-nationalism, you'd be all the time.
I'd be self-loathing?
Yeah.
I'd be at war with myself?
Yeah, it'd be terrible. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that there is such a thing as a good and rightful and decent pride in one's ethnicity, one's nationality, one's culture group. Absolutely. But that does not mean that you have to hate all the others.
No.
No.
But they're inferior. And you're the superior, you're the master race.
Did I mention that? Did I mention that? Only everybody who believes in the master race thinks it's their own people. No, it's true. You won't have anybody say, "Yeah, it is a master race, but it's not us. We're losers. We're just so lucky to be living next door to the whoever's. They really know how to live, and if it weren't for them, we'd just be, sitting in mud, drinking out of waste paper baskets."
No one's like that?
No one's like that. No one's like that. No one says, "My people are big dum-dums, but our neighbors are smart. That's why we're their serfs, and boy, do we deserve it." No, you're not going to get that out of anybody.
Oh.
So,
Okay, well, the whole concept, I'm not very familiar with the concept of ethno-nationalism. It's kind of interesting to me because it's like, well, how long does a person have to be in America before his nationality is American? I mean,
well, that's a good question. I mean, does he have to be a DAR? Well, his wife would be, daughter of the American Revolution.
Oh, daughter, oh, interesting.
Ah.
But they would still be British, you see?
Well, then, under that circumstance, the only real Americans would be the American Indians.
That's true.
And a ton of them are part white.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Oh.
It's just a weird, I don't know.
But there was the other thing. As I say, you should have a certain pride, a proper love of your own people.
Yeah.
But it should never extend to a hatred of other people's, so much as an exaltation of your own. In other words, it's like when we commemorate the World War II. Not World War II, the American Revolution.
Uh-huh.
I think it's perfectly fine to commemorate the valor of both sides.
Oh, wow, that's so unpatriotic, I can't believe it. The British, really?
Yeah.
Taxation without
Don't
representation?
start.
I mean, come on.
Taxation without representation.
Thank God we didn't turn into the British. Otherwise, I mean, we'd be barbarians. I mean, imagine the tyranny.
Genders. We'd have 3 genders voted by order of the state. Oh, we have that. Sorry.
Well, that's just kind of a negative byproduct of our freedom. See, I mean that you gotta take the good with the bad when it comes to freedom.
I see. Freedom isn't free. Freedom isn't free. You gotta pay the price. You gotta sacrifice for your liberty.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, well, I have one word for that.
What?
No, what rot? What else you got?
Okay, next question is from Edward.
Okay.
What is your opinion of the late Professor Plinio Correa de Oliveira and his association, the TFP? What do you think of their call to chivalry boys camp and the St. Louis de Montfort Academy? Would really like to hear your take on this active Catholic organization.
All right. Firstly, Professor Plinio is dead.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah, but he was a good thinker, a very good thinker, and his book Revolution and Counter-Revolution has a lot of fascinating stuff in it. What was the American TFP? Was it the totality of the TFP like? Well. I'd say I'm sympathetic, to their love of chivalry and their wanting to bring back the best elements of the past. I'm in favor of all that. I don't know anything about the school or the summer camp, so I can't talk to that. I would say that the TFP has made some unpleasant enemies for itself, but that doesn't bother me.
That's a sign that they're faithful, to be honest.
They can be, absolutely.
The thing I like, because I'm not involved in TFP, but the thing that I think everybody knows about, every faithful Catholic knows about, is they organize these rallies against these satanic masses that happen. I mean, we just got one a couple months ago. I guess something happened in Oklahoma. Well, they rally everyone and they shut that down. I mean, nobody else is doing that.
No, and they're very out there. They're very visible. So, as I say, I'm very sympathetic to them.
Yeah.
I mean, and if they seem a bit odd, well, remember we're conformist little bunnies. We don't like standing out or standing up.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good part of their oddness.
The leader, John Horvat, I gave him he wanted a complimentary copy of Chivalry, and I gave it to him. I think he's going to like that book.
I hope so.
Hopefully he reviews it.
So how long ago was that?
It was a while ago. But
we're looking to you.
Yeah. There was another thing about Chivalry. I actually read Revolution, Counter-Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
We don't sell it on the bookstore, unfortunately, because it's got weird distribution. But it's interesting. It's interesting because he talked about the concept of, I guess, I forgot what the word he used, but kind of the tweeners, the semi-counter-revolutionaries. That he seemed to suggest that people who have, I guess it was just sort of a need to stay pure. You need to be 100% counter-revolutionary, and you need to look at these tweeners and cut them off. I hope I have that correctly. Because it's been about 10 years since I've read this book. What do you think about that?
Well, they're...
Because it's tough, because I understand the point where it's like you want to contain infections of error and stuff. So it's kind of to be fair to Dr. Correa, Plinio, it's a tough challenge to solve.
Well, it is. See, it's like with anything else. Do you become so pure in ideology that you appeal to no one? Or so broad and open to everybody that you have nothing distinctive to say?
Right.
And did he answer it? No.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody answered it? No. It is a problem that will always plague us.
Yeah.
Because, it's a little bit like a restaurant, an old established restaurant. If you give up too much of your ethos and what makes you what you are, you'll close because people will stop coming. They come to you because you're that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you don't alter from time to time to a certain degree, you won't stay open either. And maintaining the balance.
It's hard, yeah.
So, on the one hand, I may not agree entirely with him on that point, but I can't fault him for making the point, if that makes sense to you.
Right, that makes perfect sense.
Because it's not like what he was saying was objectively untrue.
Right. Okay, next question is from Daniel.
Okay.
What is your opinion on Stoicism? And is it compatible with Catholicism? Are you being stoic?
Mm-hmm. I am. One of the problems with Stoicism is it's boring as all get out.
Is that okay?
Is that really what Stoicism
But
means?
if your faith is on the line and it helps the faith, I mean, is boring really that?
Stoicism is, of course, a pre-Christian philosophy. That doesn't mean that Catholics might not be able to use something out of it.
So what is it? I mean, we know what it means to be stoic. I mean, is that all there is to it? Kind of sort of not emotional and do your duty for the sake of duty? Is that it?
That's a large part of it. There's more to it than that,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm not in a position to really share because
No?
I don't remember.
Oh, you don't remember?
No, I don't remember. I encountered Stoicism in the Survey of Philosophy course back in the 70s before you were born.
So that means it's unimportant since you don't know it.
Pretty much.
I was using your line.
Yeah, I know.
Just
My name
because
is
you
Los
don't know
Angeles
something
line.
doesn't mean
I
it's
know.
not important.
I know. I know that.
Okay.
But I wanted to be able to have you in that position to say, so you're saying it's unimportant because you don't know it. And I could say yes.
Yeah.
And put myself up for a complete hypocrite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, job well done. Mission accomplished.
There we go. All right, what else you got?
Okay. Next question's from Benjamin Cruz.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on Rollo the Viking? Do you think his conversion was sincere? Who's Rollo the Viking?
Rollo the Viking was a Viking, strangely enough, who was given to cure him of raiding the French coast. The King of France gave him the whole province of Normandy.
That was generous.
Well, it was more than generous because the Vikings settled in Normandy and it became a fighting resource for the Kingdom of France.
Hmm.
And Rollo's great-grandson, I think, was William the Conqueror.
Okay.
So, you know, they got on pretty well.
So Rollo's a good guy, and he had a sincere conversion.
You bet. He made us Normans who we are. Drinkers of Calvados.
Drinkers of what?
Calvados.
What is that?
It's a sort of apple brandy.
You drink that?
I did.
Is it good?
No.
I don't believe you.
Well, you don't believe that I drink it? You don't believe that it's good?
I don't believe that it's good. Apple brandy?
It is. It's very good.
Okay.
So basically, you're gonna be doing this to me every time there's a bit of a problem with me. You'll ask me a booze question,
No, you mentioned the booze, and I asked, what is that?
and I said, but you didn't believe me.
You're making generalizations about the way I am.
All right, let's go on.
All right, next question is from Anthony Giovacchini. Statues are a big part of Catholic devotions. Many Protestants citing scripture claim this is idolatry.
Oh boy.
How would you guys charitably respond to this attack? Charitably, you're not always so charitable with Protestants, Charles.
But that's not true. I would take the.
You just said on the last one you compared Protestants. Well, actually, the question compared it, and you agreed Protestants to ISIS in
Look,
terms of iconoclasm.
I would take. I would take a Protestant in front of a. I take such a Protestant in front of a statue and sacrifice it.
Wait, you would take a Protestant in
Who
front.
asked me such a question and sacrifice him to one of our idols, so we could find out what we are, up close and personal.
Wow. Okay. So
But
they're
you
calling it. So
appreciate-
basically they're calling us idolaters, and so it's like, okay, you're just gonna run with it. Okay, I'm an idolater. Let me
Yeah.
sacrifice you in front
Right.
of us.
And pull your heart out and offer you to St. Christopher or St. Jude. Yeah, what's wrong with that? What?
You've lost it, man.
No, I'm just saying.
You're out of control right now.
I'm just saying.
Oh, God.
No, I wouldn't do that. I have to admit, I'm funning you. It's true. No, I'd point out, number one, that they have no objection to statues that they use to remind themselves of people. Washington,
Oh, that's a good point.
Jefferson, Adams, all those guys.
Yeah.
Well, if they are worthy of renown, as these, as the great figures of our country or several countries or our culture, whatever they are, how much more so these figures who've spent their lives trying to get themselves and us to heaven.
But we don't pray to them,
Uh,
to the monuments.
No, we don't.
So,
Well, we don't actually pray to the statues of saints either. They allow us to visualize the person the way a photograph does.
mm,
But I mean, if you're looking in your wallet and you see a picture of your mother, you start going, "Oh, Mom, I miss you so much. Would you make me some cantini or something when I get home?"
no, I don't do that.
No, of course you don't. And similarly, when we pray, quote unquote, to statues, we're using it to focus our minds on the object of the prayer, not to pray to the thing itself.
Okay. All right, our last question today is from Gabriel. Does Charles ever think about going on an adventure to find Enoch and Elijah? Or at least thinking about writing a book about finding these living Old Testament saints that will one day defeat the Antichrist? Have you ever dreamed of going on an adventure?
I'm going on one.
Oh, well, that's true. But I don't know if Enoch and Elijah are in Austria.
No, they're not. Actually, I have it on good authority that Enoch is here.
What's here?
Enoch.
No, okay. Where is here?
Ah, the LA area.
Enoch is in the LA area. What is he doing?
Trying to stay alive.
He's just trying to make it? He's
Yeah.
trying to...
He's come to the big city, he's come to LA, he wants to make it. No, he's an older gentleman who's convinced that he is the prophet Enoch. And it will appear in Rome toward the end of this pontificate. I think he may vanish simply because he doesn't have the same activist role that Elias plays.
Okay. Okay, that's it for the questions today. Finally, now the books. We have a ton of books today. You know, I thought...
A ton.
A ton. You know, when we promoted True Devotion to Mary last week, you know, I said, you know, there are 2 books more than any other books I'd like people to buy on the store, and True Devotion and Diary, Saint Maria Faustina Kowalska. This book, you know, I developed a program to track sales on Amazon for all the books in our store to see which is the most popular book. For the past 10 years that I've been tracking it, Diary of Faustina is the most popular Catholic book of the past 10 years, I can safely say, because it is always in the top 10 of sellers for the past 10 years. It doesn't really let up. So if you somehow haven't read this book yet, what are you doing? How much more popular does Saint Faustina have to be before you read this book? For me, again, this is one of those books you want to read, one chapter. Have you read this book?
No.
No, you haven't read this? Wow.
I haven't. I'm familiar with the devotion,
Wow.
but I have not read it.
Wow, gosh, maybe I'll gift you this copy then, because this is, yeah, take it.
No, I mean, I'm familiar, of course, with her.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I'm very, very familiar with the Sacred Heart devotion, and I know with its history, and I know how this really was sort of a natural outgrowth of it.
Yeah, right, yeah, offshoot, yeah.
And
what you'll notice, what Charles is noticing right now, is there are words in bold. There are a lot of words in, some words in bold. The publisher, Marian Press, they did that sort of, I guess, for people browsing to easily see what words is Jesus saying to her. Some of these mystical things that he's saying. So if you just want to dip your toes in to the book, you don't want to read it and just flip through, it's pretty cool. Actually, that's actually what I did before I read the book. I just flipped through and was reading what Jesus was saying to her, and that got me in. But let's see, what else is there? I after I finished the book, I myself, I was so inspired by it that we kind of have an empty, unused closet in our house, and I turned that closet into a shrine to the Sacred Heart, kind of a quasi shrine. I got a big old poster of the Sacred Heart, some Marian posters, put some Marian statues, put some posters of the angels and St. Michael's, and then I bought a kneeler. So it's a nice little place to pray. But this is the power of this book. This is what I'm sure other people have had a similar reaction to this.
So it's like a home altar you set up.
Yeah, I mean, kind of.
That's what they call those things.
Oh, that's what they call those things? Okay, I didn't know if I wanted to call it an altar, because an altar is where a sacrifice happens, I thought.
No, they say the home altar.
Okay, yeah, so that's what that inspired. And the Divine Mercy Chaplet is something that I personally feel is an important supplement. It's a supplement to the Rosary, because we were talking, for Secret of the Rosary, we were talking about the Rosary a lot. And that, when we're feeling happy, we say the joyful. When we are feeling sad, you say sorrowful. And, other times you say the glorious. Well, you get that same sort of situation, at least I do, for the Divine Mercy Chaplet. Sometimes I see something that really disquiets my soul.
Not today, not these days.
No, something that, when you see something and you think, wow, we're in a real bad way. We're in need of mercy. That is when I say the chaplet, because it's very simple to say a chaplet too. For the sake of the Hail Mary beads, or for the sake of a sorrowful passion, have mercy on us and on the whole world. So it's kind of an easier to say because your prayer is focused on humility, and also it's very beneficial because it's on compassion too.
Yeah.
And that's something that sometimes we have. A lot of times we'll look at, no-gooders, I guess you could say, and say, oh, man, they deserve to fry. But that's not what a Christian is supposed to be.
Well, we're supposed to acknowledge we're not in a position, I mean, as with the practices of saints that we find bizarre, it's not up to us to make that kind of judgment.
Right. And we should be praying for mercy. We should be seeing these people and I don't know if this was from Faustina, but if Jesus said this for Faustina or someone else, but Jesus said, I'm sure in one of these by one of these mystics, the greater the sinner, the greater he has access to my mercy.
If he'll take advantage of it.
If he'll take advantage of it. See.
And I know one of her lines from our Lord is that I know this line with the diary, that he complained to her that people don't trust him.
That's right.
And that's very much a part of our lives, ladies and gentlemen, in the sense that you sometimes think that God's out to get you.
Yeah.
He's not going to give us a free pass, but he's on our side.
Yeah.
In other words, he's not simply going to say, do whatever you want, and that's okay, and we'll all waltz together after death. No. But in the great battle to try to remain virtuous, to try to stay faithful, he's on our side. That's why he's bent over backwards to get us the sacraments. That's why evil priests do not lose their power.
Yeah.
Because we need the sacraments more than God's justice needs to punish those guys.
Yeah.
Which is why a man can lose his faith in the Blessed Sacrament. He can be another piece of scum. But when he says the right words, with the right material, in the right way,
yeah,
then our Lord comes. And this is a particularly important thing to bear in mind today, when all these things are going on. And the need that we all have for mercy, because one of the great temptations that face us in times like these is to forget that even though this guy is a worthless pedophile and that guy is a scumbag hierarch, what about me?
Well, see, that's another thing too, which is what I love from the Divine Mercy, because when you're saying it, for the sake of sorrowful passion, have mercy on us, you're acknowledging your own sins. I need the mercy. Because I'm a big time sinner. I need the mercy.
Yeah.
So that's another powerful thing that comes out of the Divine Mercy Chaplet.
So, all right.
I do want to say a couple other things, because
Sure.
I can't talk. I mean, there's just so much to say.
And we're coming to the end of our time.
Yeah, I know. But let's see. The thing I like, another thing I like about this, the Diary of Faustina, it's not a hagiography. I actually don't. They're not my cup of tea. Hagiographies where they glorify, the
The
saint, and I like biographies where you can see the weakness, you can see the human qualities, you can see the frailties, so that inspires you because you're like these great saints who are also very, they're not Superman.
No,
They're
at
just
least
like
not to
us.
begin with.
And so she had struggles. She had a confessor. She had confessor problems. She had plenty of struggles and a lot of worries. But she also had qualities that are alien to us. We talked about in a previous time how I mentioned how she had a true love of God. God was the true love of her life. Even more than her family somehow. Which isn't to say she loved her family little. It's just her love was God. For God was so immense, and it was alien to see that. I've never seen that before from another human being.
Yeah,
The difference there.
She's on a different wavelength.
And the other thing, which was completely alien, that we all need, you, me, everybody, that she had, which is kind of hard to fathom. You guys probably aren't going to believe me when I say this, but she didn't talk about any other in order to avoid gossip. She didn't talk about any person unless they were in the room.
I will do it.
That's an unbelievable practice of silence to me. And she didn't express her opinion unless it was directly asked of her.
But everyone has a right to my opinion.
Wow. But so those are two things that, man, we need a lot of that. So Divine Mercy. There's one book. I tell you, one thing we've been talking about the activities at the Tumbler House building. One thing we haven't talked about is the absolute frenzy the Tumbler House building has been in to publish these two new books from Tumbler House. Birth Control by Halliday Sutherland. A statement of Christian doctrine against the Neo-Malthusians. Those nasty Neo-Malthusians. And Gold, Frankincense, and Myrrh by Ralph Adams Cram. Okay, so let's start with Birth Control first. Let's start with Birth Control. Now these are both books that we're publishing based on your recommendation. Now
I feel grandiloquent.
Yeah, there you go. On the cover by Charles Coulomb, chillingly prophetic.
Yeah.
Because this was written about
It was written in the 20s.
In the 20s, but the way he talks about this, it's like he just wrote this 10 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to say about this?
Oh, yeah. Firstly, as I mentioned in the foreword, Halliday Sutherland was an interesting character. He was a convert, an English convert, Scots, I guess. Sutherland's a Scots name. Of the era of Chesterton and Belloc and all that. And he knew those guys.
Yeah.
But he was a, he was a doctor, a medical doctor. And before he became a Catholic, he was a convert. Before he became a Catholic, he became a practicing medical doctor. And he specifically worked amongst the poor. And one of the things he noticed in the English slums of the time, and again, you can almost think of Charles Dickens, and A Christmas Carol, because they were not that far removed. Some of the slums, in fact, they were worse.
Yeah.
Because they were more industrialized and had, another 70 or 80 years of pollution dumped on top of them. Well, a huge percentage of the poor children in the English slums had tuberculosis.
Oh, yeah.
And he had pledged himself to fighting tuberculosis. Now, what made this even worse is that in those days, the only way you could really tackle tuberculosis is to send somebody out of town to a sanitarium to recover. And these places were like resorts.
Oh, wow.
But
So it wasn't for the poor.
No, it wasn't for the poor. And the poor died of TB, just like flies. Worse, it would get into the milk.
The what?
The milk that
the
children
milk.
drank. Yeah.
Oh man.
And people would sell tuberculosis milk because it was cheap.
Ah.
10,000 children a year died of tuberculosis when Halliday Sutherland began his career.
Gosh.
10,000. Now, at the same time, they had the eugenics movement, which said that these slum dwellers and all that really needed to go, and that although it was unpleasant, tuberculosis was a good thing because it was purging the population of these people. Well, he became a Catholic, and then, having become a Catholic, went off and went on a writing career, which is how I encountered him. He did a lot of travel writing.
Yeah.
And you would never imagine that the jolly, light-hearted man who wrote Hebridean Adventure and Lapland Adventure and all that wrote this. Because here what he does is he attacks birth control root and branch and shows what he first encountered it because it was pushed by the eugenicists in his time. There was a lady in England when he was running around called Marie Stopes, who was like the Margaret Sanger of England, and he made some comments about her in this book, and said that she was a eugenicist and basically wanted to wipe out the poor and the unfit, as she could consider them, and the colored and so forth. And she took him to court. She accused him of defamation of character and so forth. She won the first round. No, I'm sorry, he won the first round. Then she won on appeal, and then went all the way up to the House of Lords, who were not particularly pro-Catholic. And he won.
Ooh.
So it's interesting because when you read or see movies about Marie Stopes, and they've made them, she's the heroine. Of course, you've got this terrible man doing this and pursuing her all the way to the House of Lords.
Of course.
Except that she initiated the action.
Yeah.
And yeah, she lost a ton of money over the deal. But if she kept her mouth quiet and accepted the truth about herself, she wouldn't have lost the money. Anyway, Halliday Sutherland, and I'll take this opportunity also to point out that Halliday Sutherland's grandson, Mark Sutherland, has a tremendous website on his grandfather's work in total, not just this. And I recommend it highly. You'll see the address in here.
Okay, but he attacks birth control both logically. The Malthusian argument. He attacks it logically, how it's bogus, but also he attacks it spiritually. And it's interesting. So it shows you that Humanae Vitae, natural family planning, was not instituted or initiated by Humanae Vitae. That this was always. Well, actually, I don't know how long it was prevalent, but he definitely is espoused natural family planning.
Back then, yeah. Well, I mean, they had it in the 50s, what was called the rhythm method.
Yeah.
Which they called rather snidely Vatican roulette. And interestingly though, my parents practiced it. Because when my brother was born, he was cesarean, as was I. And the doctors told my parents when my brother was born that if they had another kid within 7 years, it would kill my mother. So they weren't going to use the artificial stuff, they used the rhythm method. I was born 7 years, 1 month, and 1 day after my brother.
Okay.
I never asked them about that.
Yeah.
You don't want to, you don't, there are conversations you don't want to have with your parents. That's one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read some of these quotes. I've extracted some quotes from this book just to show you guys, give you a flavor, and show you how awesome Halliday Sutherland is. In an age in which thought and reason are suppressed by systematized confusion and spiritless perplexity, the very simplicity of a truth will operate against its general acceptance. Wow. Wow. Malthus did a greater and a more evil thing. He forged a law of nature, namely that there is always a limited and insufficient supply of the necessities of life in the world. That's anti-biblical. That's, we say God will provide.
Yeah.
He's saying no, that's not true.
And it's also anti-reality.
It's anti-reality. Let's see here. I will read two more. From the theological point of view, the myth of overpopulation is definitely of anti-Christian growth, because it assumes that, owing to the operation of natural instincts implanted in mankind by the Creator, the only alternative offered to the race is a choice between misery and vice, an alternative utterly incompatible with divine goodness in the government of the world. Wow. And last one is a short one. Moral catastrophes inevitably lead to physical catastrophes.
Yeah.
And that's where we're headed.
That's where we're headed.
And one last thing out of, we have on the appendix, we felt it prudent to put Humanae Vitae, because it was the 50th anniversary of Humanae Vitae. If you guys are anything like me, you've spent your whole life just not needing to read Humanae Vitae because you know what it says, so you don't need to read it ever because you already know, right? We already know.
You don't know. You don't know what it says.
So I put it as an appendix for everybody who's like me and who has never actually read Humanae Vitae yet. So there it is for you guys. You guys are interested.
And I have to say about Humanae Vitae, Paul VI predicted the dating scene of today.
Ah, yeah. Yes, he did.
There's one last book, a third
Last
book. What
book.
you got there?
That we've been hyping up. Gold, Frankincense, and Myrrh by Ralph Adams Cram. Another book which you've done the forward for. You've recommended to us. Tell us about this book, Charles, and why you recommended it. Why we had to do this.
I don't know. I just was drunk. No. I wrote this book. I did not write this book. I read this book. Well, firstly, you've got to know who Ralph Adams Cram was. In one sentence, he was the greatest church and college architect this country has ever produced.
Mm.
And from about 1900 in particular, to 1940, all across this great land of ours, from St. Vincent's Church in LA and the Doheny Library at USC, all the way to the Church of the Ascension in Boston, to West Point, to the postgraduate school at Princeton, and all sorts of cities, towns, and whatnot in between. Literally, the American countryside is filled with Ralph Adams Cram buildings. He worked most often in Neo-Gothic, but not only. So, for instance, if you go to St. Vincent's today here in LA, it's in Spanish Baroque, and I mean, it is jaw-dropping.
Mm.
So, had Cram's only work been architecture, which is what he's best known for, that would have been something. He also, in his early days, was a writer of very chilling ghost stories. But that's not his only claim to fame for us. Cram was raised Unitarian in New England. Well, true story. His dad was a Unitarian minister. Doesn't get more Yankee than that.
Nope.
He married a Southern girl, though, daughter of a Confederate veteran. So you see, he bridged the gap.
Yeah.
But when he was on a visit to Rome with a friend of his, as a young man, he converted to Anglo-Catholicism. His friend became a Roman Catholic, you know. But he became very, very high church, very Anglo-Catholic. Went back to Boston, was instrumental in bringing a religious order, the Cowley Fathers, from England to Cambridge, Mass., where they still are. In fact, it's their only remaining house. It was an order that once was all around the British Empire, and now they've only got one monastery left, and that's in the United States.
Okay.
But anyway, but he was very pro-Roman.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the co-founders of Commonweal, back when Commonweal was Orthodox. He was a great friend of Chesterton and Belloc. And the only reason he didn't come into the church, I think, after researching the issue, is because at the time that he lived, it looked as though the Anglo-Catholic project of Catholicizing all of Anglicanism and bringing it into corporate reunion with Rome was going to work.
Mm.
Had he been around another 15 years, that might have looked different.
Yeah.
And of course, if he were alive today, I have no doubt he'd be in the Ordinariate. Absolutely none. It's kind of fitting that his company designed the Ordinariate's cathedral in Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cranmer Ferguson designed it. So, anyway, he wrote, with all that, said, he'd be an interesting fellow. But he wrote a series of books, starting before the First World War and ending just before he died, about politics and religion and the interplay between. Of them, the one that I consider at once the shortest and the most pithy.
Pithy, yeah.
Pithy. I mean, it works as a real good introduction to his political thought, to his religio-political thought, or politico-religious thought, if you prefer, is this book, Gold, Frankincense, and Myrrh. Now,
No, continue.
Now, basically, he argues, or he's writing in the time of World War I, I believe. I think so. Maybe I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, just after 1919. But there were a series of talks that he gave during the war. And the gold is monasticism. He's of the belief that Western society, and this, by the way, I mentioned is bringing the Cowling Fathers to America. He wasn't just about talk.
Yeah.
That was his way of trying to contribute. He believed that Western society needed three things to survive. One was a return to the monastic ideal, revival of it. The second, and this is really the strongest part of the book, in my humble opinion, the frankincense, is the need for sacramentalism, a sacramental view of life, to every element.
As compared to materialism.
Yeah. Or mere spirituality, vaguely off in the clouds somewhere. And then lastly, decent philosophy, by which he meant a realistic philosophy. Plato and Aristotle and all them guys. So, it's very well written, it's very interesting, and I emphasize, as Anglicans go, he wasn't merely an Anglo-Catholic, he was also what's called a papalist. And a papalist is an Anglo-Catholic who, in the good old days, believed that the Pope was indeed the proper head of the church. And as I say, worked for the corporate reunion of all of Anglicanism with Rome. Sadly, that was not how it worked out. But nevertheless, if this will act as an introduction to Cranham's thought, we'll have done something. I also should point out that he was the founder, or co-founder, of the Society of King Charles the Martyr in the United States, and also the Order of the White Rose, which was Jacobite. It's one of the predecessor communities for the Royal Stuart Society, which I remember.
Right up your alley.
Yeah. Well, see, I like people who like what I like, and I agree with people who hold what I hold. You don't look impressed by that last statement.
Boy, isn't that so unusual?
Yeah, it is. Most people really get into fights with people who agree with them.
Yeah.
Not me.
Your favorite chapter is sacramentalism of the three, but they're all good. My favorite of the three is the monasticism one, and I kind of wanted to talk about this. This is somewhat reminiscent of Dreyer's Benedict option, somewhat, I think.
Yeah.
And I want to read the quote, and then we'll talk about it. It's a lengthy quote. Bear with me, but it fully encompasses his thought. I believe. In the beginning, in the time of Pachomius and the hermits of the desert, the unit was the individual. We're talking about the monastic unit.
So it's the hermits, basically.
Yeah, the unit was the individual, wholly withdrawn from the world and isolated in his mountain cave or on the top of his column if his taste led in that direction. Saint Benedict increased this unit through exalting the idea of human fellowship, and thereafter it consisted of groups, either of men or women, forming a centralized community. Then, St. Ignatius Loyola increased the size of these groups, giving them the centralized control of an army. Now the time has come for a further extension of the great idea, not to the exclusion of the monastic unit or of the individual unit, but to supplement them. This new unit will be the family, men, women, and children, in that most holy unit of all, which is the Christian family, gathering together in places withdrawn from the world, as the world is now and has been for nearly 5 centuries, where they can build up what I like to call walled towns. No more of the world than is the monastery, but like that constituted on lines of order, simplicity, and righteousness.
And with the ultimate goal not simply of hiding away, but of transforming the society around them. He actually wrote a book called Walled Towns.
That's interesting. So, but,
No, I'm serious. He goes into it in much greater detail.
That's interesting. Okay, I'll take a look at that. But we had discussed the Benedict option 10, 20 episodes ago,
No.
and you seem to be against it.
Well, I'm against it from the standpoint of simply withdrawing from the world, because that doesn't work. Setting up settlements along the lines that you'd like to see everything set up, and creating, as it were, missionaries to go back out and transform the world, that's a horse of a different color. But I mean, I've looked at the examples of, in recent decades, Marycrest, St. Benedict Center, well, even some of the Catholic worker communities. What has succeeded, what has failed? What has failed is the idea that you can pull your children out of this, build something nice, and it'll go on that way. It won't. It can't. Because the children do not and will not understand what it is you fled.
I see. That makes sense.
Now, whereas, if you have such a place, it allows the parents to teach their children about the outside, what's out there, why it's the way it is, etc., etc. And it gives the children the choice. Do you want to go back out and try to make something better of it? Do you want to stay here and try to build up what we're doing? And for that matter, and I hate to steal a line from the Amish, but they have an interesting system in that they allow their children to go for a year to the city
Interesting.
and live any way they want, usually very immorally, of course, today.
Okay.
And then they have to make the decision whether to come home or not.
Ooh.
And if they don't, and this is where I wouldn't do it, if they decide to stay there, they're cut off forever.
Wow.
Whereas what I propose is that in such a setup, the kid would be able to be in a position to understand whether his personality and his abilities were better served trying to transform the outside or to come back home.
Yeah.
But mind you, either decision being okay and either being coordinated with.
Yeah.
So in other words, he wouldn't just be left off on his own as the Amish kid is stuck. Instead, if all right, you decide you're gonna stay there, what are we gonna do then? You gotta go to business, you gotta go to school, and that would all be worked out, as I say, with his parents and the community.
Okay.
And being born in mind, he would have to be a witness. He'd be a missionary. What there would not be is simply the existence for the sake of existence.
I see. I didn't have such a hardcore, isolated view in mind, like something from the movie Village or something, or the Amish, or, a monastery. I think, my life experiences has shaped my opinion that, I've had sort of friends that have led me away from the faith. I've had the fallen away Catholic friends. And the thing you can't do, you can hang out with them, but you can't become them.
No.
Quite simply, the task for all us Catholics, the threat, is to go native.
No.
Because that's what our country is. If you go native, if you recognize the anti-Catholic, how anti-Catholic our country is, if you go native, your faith is dead. See, so we have to take measures to not go native.
And that varies from person to person according to their personalities.
Right.
Because some of us are more easily swayed by our surroundings than others. Some are outright repelled by our surroundings.
Yeah.
And that's good for a person to keep his faith.
Yeah.
But it's not good for him to evangelize, to just be utterly repelled. You have to be sympathetic without embracing.
Right.
And that's,
It's so tough because
yes.
St. Francis de Sales says you become what you love.
Yeah.
And he said, he went on to say, so if you love foolish women, you're going to become foolish. And see, that's so difficult to love these non-Catholic people, but then to have this distance, but not love them so much that you become them.
Yeah.
And you have to have some weird distance there.
Exactly. And this is the great paradox, because you can't evangelize what you don't love. But on the other hand, if you love it too much, you become it.
Right.
So, and that's figuring out your personal vocation in that context is very hard.
It takes time, too.
Yeah, it's not something you come at it all at once. And that's why, honestly, ladies and gentlemen, this is where, speaking of mercy, this is where we really need mercy on from ourselves, on those who mess up this particular thing. Because it's so easy to do.
It's so easy. Everyone who I've known who's fallen faith, that's basically what they've done. They get into this crowd, and this crowd is just nativist American, and that's not Catholic. That's materialist, it's secularist, that's nihilistic, it's
and it
Gnostic.
appeals to the lesser tastes.
And it appears to, and then bon voyage.
Bon voyage. And that...
That's why, this is a good note to end on, that's why we, as Catholics, and this is a mission of Thomas, we need to understand how to have fun and how to laugh. Because if people have to go to other places, non-Catholic places, to have fun and laugh, then they're lost.
Yeah,
See,
and
have
that's our fault, not theirs.
The great lie, and I'm learning this from you. This is a student preaching the teacher's thing. Our notion, there's a huge lie that exists in America, which is that if you're religious, you're a stick in the mud. You don't have fun. It's a no fun zone, no fun police.
Yeah.
You're the fun police. We have to counter that so badly. You see it portrayed in media all the time, in movies. You never want to be the religious person. You never want to be the priest.
Well, the villain is always the one who quotes scripture.
That's what Bishop Barron said in The Shape of Water. I love that. He said at one point in time, you'd have some facial, so curly Q mustache or whatever, or something sinister. Now we know they're the villain because they quote scripture. That's how we know. Oh, he's quoting the Bible. He's the bad guy.
So that is sadly where we are, and we have to fight all that any way we can. As you guessed, down through the past couple of years, we fought it on this podcast.
Yeah.
And we have one left to go.
All these people, we actually even fight it with Catholics because sometimes Sensus Fidelium airs your thing, and they're used to a lot more serious talks. So when they're introduced to Biersack and Coulomb, they're like, who are these guys? These guys are laughing. These guys are having fun. You can't have fun. You can't have fun and talk like this. It's so puritanical, and that's death to the faith, in my opinion. That is straight up death.
It sure is. You can't, ladies and gentlemen, all of our human faculties were created by God for our sanctification, for our enjoyment. Obviously, if they become an end in themselves, they pull away from our duties, or anything like that, they're wrong. But contrary-wise, they're given us for a reason. God didn't suddenly blink and wake up and say, oh my heavens, I've created a sense of humor. Golly Moses, why did I ever do that? Oh gee willikers. No. The sense of humor, ladies and gentlemen, is how you survive in a fallen world. What really brings about humor. It is the conflict between the way things are and the way they ought to be. If you think about it,
No, absolutely, absolutely.
every joke that you've ever heard of that wasn't just dirty, it plays those two things against each other. You know, I mean, the absurd occurs because of the huge disparity between the way things should be and the way they are.
Solon Church has written about this. It's entirely based off of our fallen human nature, which actually is interesting because I don't know if there's, based off what she was saying, I didn't know if humor was in heaven per se, because there's that fallen nature's.
I don't know. I haven't been there.
Yeah, we don't know, but it's interesting food for thought.
It is. I always remind people the church itself was founded on a pun.
What? Wait, what?
The church was founded on a pun.
What was that pun?
Thou art Peter, thou art rock,
Oh,
and upon this rock I shall build my church.
right.
And, to add insult to injury, there's that wonderful line in the Epistle of St. John, wherein he says, what good does it do a man if you say, be thou warmed, be thou fed, and don't do anything to accommodate him?
Mm.
When the first time I read that when I was little, I could just see somebody doing that. Be warmed, be fed. Oh, I'm not going to do anything about it, but be thou warmed, be thou fed.
I've never heard of that. That's good.
No, and similarly, I mean, you even see a glimmer of humor from our Lord in the Garden of Olives, in the terrible, terrible horror of the agony in the garden.
Really? How?
Well, when the apostles keep falling asleep,
Okay.
and then the troops of the high priest and all that come into the garden, and he says to his apostles, "Sleep now and take thy rest, for the hour is at hand." That's sarcasm.
Oh, okay.
Think about it.
Wow, he was sarcastic.
He was sarcastic because they're coming in, and there's once again, after promising they wouldn't, they've fallen asleep for the third or fourth time. He looks, he sees them coming in, and says, "Sleep now and take thy rest."
Wow, good catch, Charles. That's wow. I don't know how I missed that the whole time.
It's sarcasm. He's being sarcastic. He says, "Look, they're here. Go ahead. Sleep now. Now's the time to rest. Go ahead. Nighty-night. Would thou not wait with me for 1 hour?"
Yeah.
No, sir. And as you well know, now that I've got sleep apnea, I sympathize with the disciples. But that's sarcasm right there in the agony in the garden.
Wow. Okay, so that's it. I have to say one more thing. I've not done this before. It's a little personal, but I have to thank everybody for all their generous orders and donations. I tried to use the money we received to the best I can. I mean, we're just, being an apostolate, you don't get a lot, and so you do what you can. But there's something that you said last week that I have been thinking about ever since, and it is so mind-boggling. Which is, it was on the question. You said that people in the future, prayers from people in the future, can impact our past because of the way God handles time.
Yeah.
And so it's messed with my mind with this chicken and the egg thing, in that all these people are praying for us, who are watching us, and you wonder, would we even be here without their prayers?
They might very well have made it possible for us to have started 2 years ago.
Yeah, we needed the prayers from the people watching the show in order to have the strength and the will to start the show.
Yeah.
Doesn't that blow your mind?
Yeah.
And so, but that, thinking about that, that knowledge changes things, that people are praying for you, and that, more grace is being showered upon you, it's like a donation. It's a spiritual good.
Yeah.
And realizing that now, I don't want to just use the temporal goods well. I want to use the spiritual goods well that you guys bestow on us. And so I just wanted to promise that we're going to be doing the best we can with the prayers that you offer us, and we're going to be trying to use that grace to do the best that we can. It changes things, that knowledge that, your mom, your family, they pray for you. And that.
Perforce.
But people who, out of generosity and charity, strangers are praying for you.
Yeah.
To squander their prayers, and that's different. That's entirely different. It feels completely different. And so I just wanted to tell everyone in our audience, I don't know, it's had an impact on me, that realization, and I'm going to try my best.
And I have to say for myself, although we have one more episode coming, it's been a great 2 years from my standpoint. We've had a good time, we've laughed, we've cried, we've sung, we've danced, well, all right, maybe not, but...
you have.
I did sing, it's true. But it's been a wonderful experience. Maybe when I'm back from Vienna in the summer or whatever, we might do some odd things, who knows. But I particularly want to thank two sorts of people. Those who were fans and wrote in and asked questions or even sent money or prayers, but also want to thank the trolls out there. Without you guys, I never would have realized I was a giggling cuck. And if it makes you feel better, after next week, you'll never have to endure the giggling of the cucks again. Isn't that a wonderful phrase, the giggling of the cucks?
Yeah, the giggling of the cucks. It's like the silence of the lambs, except the giggling of the cucks.
The giggling of the cucks. Can you hear them, Therese? Can you hear the giggling of the cucks? I like that.
I like that. But yeah, the finale next week. Wow.
The finale.
Have you ever watched a series and then it's 1 week to the finale, and that entire week you spend is counting the days to the finale? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, only 4 more days to the finale. Well, I tell you what, our fans, if that was how they approach this upcoming week, that would not be unjustified.
No, we've got some interesting things planned. I can't tell you anything because I'm under strict. I've signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah. We gotta dot our I's and cross our T's.
I know.
You're a loose cannon. Loose lips sink ships.
Yeah. I'm a loose cannon. I'm a short timer, as everyone's reminding me. You don't need any more pens. You already used up your shipment, and we can't give you another one because you'll be gone.
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to bring my own pens in.
Well, don't you have any pens?
That's not the point. Of course I had pens at home. Why should I have to bring them into work? I mean, look, as long as until the day I actually leave here, okay? Until that day, I should be getting pens from the company, not having to bring my own in. But they said, oh, you used up your last allotment, so you don't get any more pens.
Well, why don't you just offer it up?
Why don't you offer it up and give me some of your pens? Oh, and paper is another thing. Oh, you used up your last ream that you were allotted. Everything's this allotted. I never heard anything allotted. Now I find everything. When I wanted something, I asked for it. That was it. Okay? And now I learned there's this chit system nobody ever told me about. I never presented any bloody chits in the commissary. Didn't matter how rotten the fish was. I just, came in and sat down. I mean, there'd be the lady in the back checking things, but I presumed, I don't know what I presumed, but apparently that was their accounting system. Now they want to charge you for the disparity. You know what the food in the commissary is like? It stinks. Yes, I've said it. It stinks.
Well, maybe I don't know. I mean, it's like the book. Maybe you should read Abandonment to Divine Providence. You know, each moment is brought about, all the suffering is processed for your salvation, Charles. Maybe you should start to accept these things.
Maybe you should remember that defrauding a laborer of his hire is one of the four sins calling to heaven for vengeance.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, I'm glad I don't know anything about anything.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yep.
No, seriously, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a lot of fun, and I know that everybody in the secretarial pool, and the motor pool, the security team, everybody here at Tumbler House, although they're saddened by my going, I've really over exaggerated slightly the annoyances. It's been great, and I was particularly touched by the key to the meditation garden.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to use that for the rest of my life just by using the key. That's very touching.
It's gonna be one of your happy places, hopefully.
Yeah, alongside Lloyd's Bar in The Shining.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Yep, one more week. And remember, at least this week and next, if it's Monday,
It's off the menu.
ciao.